The bridge of the Imperial Dreadnought Eternal Dominion hummed with the usual efficiency of a Velkhari warship. Commander Zekthar stood at the center of the command deck, his four eyes scanning the holographic displays that surrounded him. For 3,000 cycles, the Velkhari Empire had ruled this sector of the galaxy with an iron grip, their technology unmatched, their military undefeated. Until today. "Commander," the sensor officer chirped, her translator converting the clicking sounds into standard Galactic. "We're detecting an unidentified vessel approaching the quarantine zone." Zekthar's mandibles clicked in annoyance. The quarantine zone, Sector 7 Alpha, the primitive world the Empire had designated as off-limits after the initial survey. Earth, they called it, a planet of violent, short-lived bipeds who had barely achieved fusion power and still used chemical propulsion to reach their own moon. "Display it," Zekthar commanded. The hologram shifted, revealing a ship unlike anything in the Imperial database. It was crude, almost barbaric in design, all sharp angles and exposed armor plating. Where Velkhari ships were sleek crescents of bioengineered metal, this vessel looked like someone had welded a weapons platform to an asteroid and called it a warship. "Size?" Zekthar asked. "Approximately 400 meters, Commander, roughly 1/10 our mass." A ripple of amusement passed through the bridge crew. 1/10 their size. This was barely a corvette by Imperial standards. "Hail them," Zekthar ordered. "Inform them they are in violation of Imperial space and must turn back immediately." The communications officer worked her console, then paused. "Commander, they're responding, but not with words, they're broadcasting. Music." "Music." The bridge speakers crackled to life, and a thunderous sound filled the command deck. It was harsh, primitive, with pounding rhythms and what sounded like electric instrumentation. Zekthar's translator struggled with the lyrics but caught fragments. "Master of puppets, pulling your strings." "Cut that noise," Zekthar snapped. "Send a warning shot across their bow." The Eternal Dominion's point defense cannons swiveled, firing a precision plasma bolt that streaked past the human vessel, missing it by a comfortable margin. Any civilized species would recognize this as the universal signal to stand down. The human ship accelerated directly toward them. "Commander," the tactical officer's voice rose in pitch, "they're launching projectiles." "Activate shields. This is pathetic missiles, chemical propellant missiles. The primitives might as well throw rocks at." The first missile struck their shields at 0.3% the speed of light. The Eternal Dominion lurched violently. Alarms shrieked across every console. The shield display flickered from green to yellow to red in an instant as the kinetic energy transfer overloaded the emitters. 3 more missiles followed in rapid succession, each one a telephone pole-sized chunk of depleted uranium, accelerated by what the computers now identified as a railgun-assisted launch system. "Shields at 40%, someone screamed. Zekthar stared at the display in disbelief. Kinetic weapons. They were using kinetic weapons. No civilized species had used purely kinetic weapons in millennia. They were too simple, too crude, too effective against shields designed to deflect energy weapons. "Return fire all batteries." The Eternal Dominion's plasma cannons lit up the void, sending bolts of superheated matter toward the human ship. The primitive vessel twisted with surprising agility, its maneuvering thrusters firing in patterns that seemed almost random. Almost. 3 plasma bolts hit the human ship's armor. The metal glowed white-hot, melting and bubbling and holding. The ship didn't explode. It didn't even slow down. "What is that armor made of?" Zekthar demanded. "Analyzing. Commander, it appears to be layered composite, steel alloys, ceramic matrices, and..." The sensor officer paused. "And water." "Water." "Between the armor layers. They're using water as a heat sink and spall liner." Jiggy stood on the bridge of the UNSC Defiance, her hands gripping the railing as the ship shook from another plasma impact. Around her, the crew worked with the controlled chaos of humans who knew they were outgunned, but refused to care. "Alex, give me good news," she called to the weapons officer. Alex grinned from his station, his fingers dancing over the controls. "Railgun capacitors at 90%. We've got 6 more slugs in the magazine plus the special package." The special package was what the crew had affectionately named the ship's experimental weapon, a concept so insane that High Command had only approved it because they never expected the Defiance to actually encounter an alien warship. Humanity had discovered the hard way, through intercepted transmissions and a few unfortunate probe encounters, that the galaxy was full of species far more advanced than them. Species with energy shields, faster-than-light travel, and weapons that could crack planets. Species who had marked Earth as primitive and off-limits like it was a nature preserve. That had made humanity angry, and when humanity got angry, humanity got creative. "Captain," the navigator called out, "they're charging what looks like a main gun. Energy signature is off the charts." Jiggy watched the alien dreadnought on the display. It was massive, elegant, powerful, everything the Defiance wasn't, but size wasn't everything. "Alex, remember what the egghead said. These ships use graviton-based shielding, strong against energy, weak against mass. Let's see if they've ever played baseball." "Baseball?" Alex looked confused for a moment, then his grin widened. "Oh, baseball." He entered the firing sequence. Zecthar watched in growing horror as his ship's main graviton cannon powered up. It was overkill for such a small vessel, but he wanted to end this embarrassment quickly. The weapon could destabilize a planetary core. This human ship would simply cease to exist. "Target locked, firing in 3, 2. "Commander," the sensor officer's voice cracked. "New contact, multiple new contacts. They launched something." On the display, a cloud of objects erupted from the human ship. Hundreds of them. Thousands of them. "What are those?" They're ball bearings, Commander. Steel spheres. Each one approximately 2 centimeters in diameter. They're using magnetic accelerators too. The first wave hit the shields like a shotgun blast. Individually, each bearing carried relatively little energy, but there were 10,000 of them, each traveling at relativistic speeds, each one striking the shield emitters from a slightly different angle. The shields collapsed entirely. The second wave hit the hull. The Eternal Dominion shuddered as thousands of hypervelocity impacts peppered its armor. Each bearing punched through the outer hull, superheated to plasma by atmospheric friction with the ship's own life support systems, creating a cascade of internal explosions. Hull breaches on decks 7 through 12. Life support failing in sections A through G. Main weapon offline. Zecthar could only stare as the primitive human ship, the vessel they had dismissed as barely worthy of notice, tore through his dreadnought like it was made of parchment. "All ships fall back," he finally ordered. "Retreat to the fleet staging area. Send a priority message to High Command. Earth is not primitive. Repeat, Earth is not primitive." Jiggy watched the alien warship limp away, trailing atmosphere and debris. Around her, the crew erupted in cheers. "Should we pursue?" Alex asked. Jiggy shook her head. "No, let them run. Let them tell their empire what happened here." She turned to face her crew, these humans who had taken a ship built from spare parts and surplus military hardware, and turned it into something that made a galactic superpower flee in terror. "They wanted to keep us in our corner of space, treat us like children who can't be trusted with the grown-up toys," Jiggy said. "Well, message sent. Humanity doesn't ask for permission anymore. We don't wait for invitation. When someone draws a line and tells us we can't cross it," she smiled, "we cross it with guns blazing and physics on our side." The crew cheered again, and Alex pulled up a new music track over the speakers. More of that ancient Earth rock that seemed to unnerve the aliens so much. Somewhere in the depths of space, the Velkari Empire was learning a lesson that countless species would soon discover. Humanity might be young, might be primitive by galactic standards, might still be figuring out the basics of interstellar travel. But they were very, very good at violence. And sometimes, in a galaxy full of energy shields and graviton weapons and ships grown from engineered crystals, the answer was simple: hit them with a rock. Hit them with a rock hard enough and fast enough, and no amount of advanced technology could save them. The Defiance turned toward home, its railguns cooling, its crew already planning their next modification. Because if one human warship could do this much damage, imagine what a fleet could do. The galaxy, Jiggy thought, was about to get a lot more interesting. And somewhere in Imperial space, Commander Zekther was composing a report that would send shockwaves through the Velkari Empire. 4 words that would change everything. The humans are coming. And